views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Blue Ridge PBS, the Virginia Department of Education, or the Virginia Society for Technology in Education.
I'm Tom Landon. We often hear about how small rural schools aren't as able to provide technology-rich instruction as their urban and suburban counterparts. So I was thrilled to talk to Michelle Kress, an instructional technology innovation specialist in Prince Edward County, where they've been able to leverage grants to purchase a mind-blowing virtual anatomy table that's being used for students in science and health careers classes. I love the chance to visit places that are figuring out ways to level the playing field for their kids. And that's our topic on the latest edition of ActiVAtED Learning.
Blue Ridge PBS, in partnership with the Virginia Department of Education and in collaboration with VISTI, the Virginia Society for Technology in Education, is talking to leading educators about what gets them energized and how technology is being used to inspire student engagement. This is ActiVAtED Learning.
When I first heard about it, I thought it was gonna be like a real body, but then when I saw it was just like computer printed, and you could move the body, you could cut the body in half.
I think it's good because me personally, I'm a visual learner, and being able to see it and actually touch it with my hands, it helps a lot.
When I do have that conversation with them and I show them kind of what the table does, the students that is, I say, okay, who wants to take over? I said, it's in one driver at a time because it's touchscreen, it's just a big computer, if you will. Who wants to try it? And then they dive in. There's always one who's super excited.
Michelle, welcome to ActiVAtED Learning.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
And I was just like to start. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get where you are?
It's been an interesting career, interesting path for sure. So I started out as an English teacher. I grew up in Ohio, went to Kent State, and found a love for reading. Had great teachers who, really kind of grew me up as a person, if you will, and kind of led me along the way, and I wanted to pay that forward. So I started as an English teacher, graduated, moved immediately down to Statesville, North Carolina. At 23 years old, didn't know a soul, just went down there and fell in love with it. I taught down there for 5 years at Statesville High School, and that's really kind of where I grew up as a teacher, really. They raised me as my teacher's side, and I learned a lot, and came back to Ohio for 5 years, take care of family. I actually left education for a year, worked for a tech company where I was a launch specialist. So I work with school districts all around the world, really, to start up with this company's products and then pass them on. I worked with people who set up authentication, so all that great, LDAP and all that stuff on the SSO and things on the backside.
All right, now.
Oh,
There's our buzzword bell, and it's not really an instructional term.
That's
That's
true.
SSO.
SSO, that's true. Well, that's where I really learned a lot of it.
What does SSO stand for?
So SSO stands for single sign-on. At our district, we use Clever here for the most part, but it's really just one-stop shop for signing on to lots of different apps and websites and things. So, I got to learn all that while also learning about how people were using this technology in the classroom, really around the world. And during my time in North Carolina, I had started my master's degree in educational technology. So I went to Appalachian State, and they had a great online program. Shout out to them. I loved that program, and I used it in my classroom even before I left North Carolina. I ended up leaving that company and going to a part-time technology integration specialist position at a school district in Ohio. And the head of technology, Eric Unix, love him. He taught me so much. He mentored me. He taught me more of the stuff in the back, but then also gave me the freedom to work with teachers and start really integrating technology there as they were just launching their one-to-one program. A few years later, I ended up coming to Virginia. I started out at Henrico and then met and fell in love, the typical story, and came out here. I was with Bedford County for a few years and in the English there. And then I really wanted to get back into technology. And right here, Prince Edward had a position, and I applied, and here I am.
Here you are?
Last year, yeah.
Well, that's great. And, I think all of your experiences, both having taught in the classroom, but also been in what others like to refer to as the real world, right? But actually dealing with clients and especially since it was a technology-related job, that was probably really helpful. I could tell, we spent some time today watching you work with a teacher and work with some students on this device that we're going to talk about in just a minute. And I just want you to talk about the role of that technology specialist or ITRT or whatever you call them here. Every division seems to be getting new names for them. But, how important is it that you are actually working with students and teachers to help you utilize this instructional technology?
I think that's the entire job. That's the meat and potatoes, is yes, can I set up the SSO, the Clever, can I fix their Chromebooks? Yeah, I can do things. I can't set up your printer. I'm terrible at it. You want the other guy. But really, ultimately, this is exactly what I should be doing, is in with the teachers, in with the kids. We're really, really blessed and fortunate here in our district to have quite a bit of technology. But I'm a firm believer that if it's not in the hands of our students, it really doesn't matter. If the kids aren't using it and we're not using it to, meet our standards and really push them forward, it doesn't matter. The technology is a tool, we should be using it. So, and I'm the person, and myself and the other, they call us ITISs here. So,
ITIS, that's an acronym. Instructional Technology what?
There it is. So it's Instructional Technology Innovation Specialist. I believe, don't quote me, but I believe we're the only ones in the Commonwealth with that title. So that's Prince Edward. That's us. So we have myself, I'm the regular ITIS, and then we have Jamie Pop, who is an ITS STEM, which is Science, Technology, Engineering, Mathematics. She is in charge of our STEM lab at our middle school and our elementary school, and also kind of comes alongside of me, and we do projects together too. And we're both part of the curriculum instruction department. So that is really our job. We're here to work with the teachers and work with the kids and really get them moving forward.
And I think not in all divisions are people in your position in with curriculum. Often they're with technology, which is great too. But, the people who are maintaining servers aren't necessarily the people who are also, doing that actual technology.
Right. I see it as like one foot in each. I have one foot in the tech department. I meet with them and I work with them closely. But then I have one foot in curriculum, because you really have to bridge both in this position.
Sure. That's exactly your job.
Yeah,
right?
That is the job.
So, again, before we talk about this amazing piece of technology that's sitting right over here to my left, what do people need to know about Prince Edward County Schools? Because you are in a rural place.
Yeah, for those of us who don't know where we are actually in Farmville, Virginia, which is kind of, think of it as like between Lynchburg and Richmond. And so it is rural. And, it's interesting because we have such a mix of kids here. We have quite a diverse population, which when I came here, I was kind of surprised and grateful and glad. I was very excited to see that. But I was also really excited to see just how much, not just technology, just resources, how many resources and all these things that we can do. You don't expect it from a school who's very rural. And we're still, kind of building that and really building up our programs. It really is pretty amazing. That's the big thing about Farmville, I think, that has impressed me. And Prince Edward has impressed me the most being here.
This is ActiVATED Learning.
Chronic absenteeism means I'm missing 2 days a month, which is 18 days a year. Parents need to ask their school, how many days has my child missed?
Subscribe to the podcast on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Blue Ridge PBS Echo TV.
So now we're going to transition to this device that's over to my side, this Anatomage. Am I pronouncing it?
Anatomage. Yeah.
And so tell me what it is, first of all, and then we'll talk about kind of how it's getting used.
Okay. So the Anatomage table it looks like almost like a clinical table. Like, when you go to the doctor, it's white and it kind of has the top up here. But instead of where you would sit and talk to your doctor, it's actually screens. It's a touch screen. So when you look at it, it's a virtual body table. You have a 3D body. We have 5 different cadavers that we can choose from, people who have donated their bodies to science, and they were scanned in to the program and kind of pieced together, which is a little crazy to say, but it's 3D. You could spin them, you could turn them, you can take away the different layers, look at, isolate different systems, body systems, and be able to really study that. And it's all real life. So, when you have, all of us used to have the skeleton, in our old anatomy class or our old biology class. It was perfect. It was plastic. You didn't see all these spots. Whereas with the Anatomage table, it really has, these were real people. So if they had cancer, it's there. And if they, broke a hip, it's there. You can see their scars. One of our cadavers, I believe it's Victor, has a deviated septum. So that's something we can always show the kids, zoom in on his nose and show kind of where that's split there. It's amazing.
I think that's really powerful. And I actually think that probably when kids know this was a person,
Yeah.
that kind of changes, it makes it a little bit more like a medical school environment where you're
Absolutely.
dealing with a cadaver. And the first thing they do in medical school, as I understand it, is like you're to get to know this person who gave their body to science. So your kids were granted, these are outstanding kids who came in today,
Yes, they were
but
cute.
they were, they seemed very respectful of that
Yeah.
whole thing. Well, granted, we were only looking at the heart, but nonetheless.
Right. Well, and whenever I start with a class that, at very beginning of the semester or the year, I always make sure with the teacher that I'm in too. And it's still new to our teachers, like the nursing teacher who was with us, Mary Harris, she's new to us this year. So they're a little nervous because it is an expensive piece of equipment. It's a little intimidating, so I tell them, you know what, I'm going to do the first class with you. And we have that kind of conversation about, okay, guys, this is a real person. This was a person who, they had a family and a mom and dad and whatnot. I always tell them I have a chart up on the wall over here to our left, and it has their age, their gender, their, what they died from, those sort of things. And I always talk about that. Like, this is an actual person. And yes, you're going to see all of the body parts. It is anatomically correct. So, we kind of have that talk about being respectful and things because it's people. And the kids who are in here, we have our students in our CNA program, and we have kids who are taking the anatomy classes. We'll be using it quite a bit. We're hoping to also move into the health and PE classes. But the kids who want to be here from the CNA, they are going into the medical field. So it's kind of that conversation of, if you're going to do this for a career, like, this is the job, talking about what my job is, but what your job is. And this fall was interesting because the health occupations class that we had in here is kind of the pre-CNA class. Some of the kids were like, oh, this is great. And some of the kids were like, nope, I want no part of this, and turned away. And it was too much for them. So it was almost kind of a good thing for them to realize that I can't sign up for this, and then other kids are like, oh, give me.
Right. Now it is a pretty sophisticated piece of technology. And I would imagine, even though it was paid for with grant funding, which is always great, major investment in the equipment, but also how difficult was it for you? You seem to fly right around it. How difficult was it to learn to use it?
Well, it took I believe I had 2 or 3 trainings that I did with the company. They were really, really great. They had a webinar with us, like a live webinar with just us. There was webinars with other people, but what they did actually into this room, kind of meet with us and walked us through the table. And then they have lots of resources online. And really, it's like I tell the teachers, you just have to get in here and use it. You're not going to break it unless, you can, but it's really difficult to do. Just get in and see what happens. And we also have some of the tablets that they can use. And although it's not exactly the same programs and necessarily, it's kind of like a smaller version of what they have on the table. I encourage the teachers to take one with them, sign it out and go spend some time with them.
As a good way to, before you're sitting here with a bunch of students, teachers can take those tablets and learn. And also, it's a way, if you had a larger, number of students in here, you could also do that.
Well, and I gotta tell you, when I do have that conversation with them and I show them kind of what the table does, the students that is, I say, okay, who wants to take over? I said, it's in one driver at a time. because it's touchscreen. It's just a big computer, if you will. Who wants to try it? And then they dive in. There's always one who's super excited, and they can figure it out too. And so the kids, you know how kids are. We all
Our
know.
kids are our best testers of technology.
Yeah, our best tech support sometimes too, right? And they can run with it. And the teachers, Miss Harris told me that one of our kids who was here today has just helped her tremendously with it. So.
And I can imagine, you know, as kids go on to one of your students was talking about medical school. And so again, being from Prince Edward County, where there isn't there's a university here for sure, but there's not a med school here. And right too. And but one can imagine that if he gets into medical school and he shows up, you know, he's going to feel a little more comfortable when he gets there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so exciting. I think that's probably been one of the more rewarding things coming here to Prince Edward is finding those kids and giving them something to help, again, move them forward. And, you know, my concentration, even though I was English and, you know, I was a Google trainer, all that back in the day. Now I'm finding a real passion for helping kids find their career. And what is the next step for these kids? And so anything that we can give them to introduce them to new things, I'm game.
Right. And that's a trick too. Like you have to, in order to implement a piece of technology like this, to get it off the ground ideally you want lots of people using, but first you have to make sure everybody understands that it's not that complicated and that they can do it. That's your job.
Yeah, that is my job. Yep, absolutely. And they're nervous, you know, and that's with anything. That's with, you know, when we rolled out Chromebooks, same thing. Oh my gosh, I don't know. You know, and that's part of my job is to kind of look at the bigger picture and come up with procedures, but also just to kind of keep everybody at ease and figure out things like, you know, if a teacher reaches out to me and says, I want to teach X, Y, and Z, I'm going to dig in and I'm going to find that and we can look at it together. So, you know, a lot of times I'll meet with teachers ahead of time and make plans. And then, you know, we'll do a lesson, whether it's at the table in our GoTech lab or one of our STEM labs. Miss Pop and I will do the lesson with them. And then we kind of debrief. How can we change? And sometimes you don't realize what you need until you get the kids in there. You go, oh, I didn't think about that. Then you back up and adjust. And I think just kind of getting teachers to understand that is a huge part of this, you know, just putting everybody at ease is kind of where we're at.
If someone, a school administrator or a teacher is like, we need one of those, what can you tell people about, you know, what they should know if they're going to get into the Anatomage business in terms of, you know, putting forth the effort to get one, first of all, and you know, are there things you wish you'd known before, or also just like, what have you learned that you think would be helpful for other people to know?
Well, what's interesting, how this kind of went down for me, I came at the beginning of the 23-24 school year. I didn't know it was coming. It had been in the works before I got here.
So it wasn't your idea?
No, I wish it was. I wish I could take credit, but it was already in the works. The grant was already, you know, written and stuff. And somewhere around early last fall, they're like, hey, we're getting this table. I'm like, it's a what? And so that's, you know, I, at the point, was still pretty green here and I didn't really have a project. So this, our CTE science lab where we are, our interactive lab here, became my baby. And I decided to jump on it. I was going to learn this because everybody else is so busy. We got a lot going on like everybody else. But that became my baby. And so I jumped into it. So, you know, if you're going to, going back to your question, if you're going to dive into this, there are, just know right now, Anatomage told me that there's about 127 of these across the Commonwealth. 39 of them are in high schools, including ours. It is an investment. I'm not going to lie to you. The price tag, I don't know the exact price tag, but it's large. But what's nice about it is that it's ours. All of the updates are free. They update once a year. Actually, we have an update we need to push out, and it's got more procedures. It's got all sorts of fly-throughs and things. I believe there was something about stuff that our kids won't necessarily do here, but like doing like, you know, tubes down the throat. It shows all sorts of things. Just wow, like unbelievable stuff that's available, and it's free after your purchase forever. So if you get it's really the initial costs and the startup and having the place and the training and things, and then you just kind of have upkeep from there.
Yeah, but a significant investment, 6 figures and at least.
Yeah,
I never got figured out.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. students who use this, you've mentioned the classes they're taking and that sort of things. You guys are a little unique in that your high school is right here, isn't it, near the technology center where we're sitting, right?
Yep.
So how do they get here to when they're going to use it? Do they walk or do they?
They do, actually. So we are very small. We have one elementary, one middle, and high school, and then the CTE building. We are all on the same road. So our high school is right across the street, and we have a crosswalk, and our teachers and administrators, during class change, help the kids get across. And
I think some of our listeners in places like Fairfax are just amazed by that, where they have more schools than you can shake a stick at.
Yes. And it's funny. I went to Akron Public Schools growing up, and that was huge. Up in Ohio is a huge district. So yeah, it is a little mind-blowing. It's like, wait, your kids can do what? But it's actually kind of nice because we can also move students between buildings, with different programs if we want to have the younger ones and the older ones working together. Last week, we hosted a STEM night and had invited everybody. It was at the middle school. It was fantastic. And it was K-12, but it's this nice little tight-knit community. So we're blessed to have that. But the kids come across, yes, they walk across over here with their classes. The teacher will meet them in the classroom, take roll, and then come on over. And then they do what they do, and then they go back. So
that's the beauty of a small division. I've
it.
noticed that. I love to go to places where they've just got all the schools are sort of all in one place.
Fair.
It means for long bus rides, sometimes for kids, but that's
I think
great.
it's worth it.
Well, I just want to thank you for taking the time with me and with our listeners and your kids who were just fantastic to talk to. So best of luck to you, and we'll talk to you next time you have something amazing to show.
Sounds great. Come on over.
All right. For ActiVAtED Learning, I'm Tom Landon. You can catch all of our episodes wherever you get your podcast. For ActiVAtED Learning, I'm Tom Landon. Thanks for listening.
ActiVAtED Learning is produced by Blue Ridge PBS in partnership with the Virginia Department of Education
and in collaboration with VISTE, the Virginia Society for Technology and Education.
This podcast is hosted and produced by Tom Landon, Director of Educational Innovation,
with lots of help from graphic and audio designer Jay Prater.
Additional support provided by Andy Depew in our podcast studio.
Our Vice President of Education is Dr. Rose Martin.
Special thanks to Calypso Gilstrap, Associate Director of the Office of Educational Technology and Classroom Innovation
at the Virginia Department of Education.
Our credits are read by students at Westside and Highland Park Elementary Schools in Roanoke, Virginia. If you like what you hear, subscribe to ActiVAtED Learning wherever you get your podcasts.
Or watch the Echo channel at blueridgepbs.org.